Hey, hi. Hey, hi, hello, welcome, or that wasn't a good idea. Hey, hi, hello, welcome, or welcome back to my channel. My name is Jess, and I just gave zero fucks when it came to filming this video. So I literally got up early this morning to get my second COVID vaccine, so now I'm fully vaccinated. And I originally got dressed to go to the gym, and then after waiting for an hour and I finally got my shot, I was freaking hungry, so I got food and I came home and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna film this video. If I don't do it now, I'm not gonna do it. And I did not feel like getting dressed and going upstairs, so this is what you get. If I didn't do it now, I was never gonna film my wrap up. I'm always so late, so here it is. We're just gonna roll with it. There may be some cut-ins of when I was trying to vlog my reading for February, which I failed at miserably because I'm a terrible vlogger. I really don't know how this video is going to go. People embraced my chaotic energy in my last tea video, so I hope that you can be open-minded with this as well, because honestly, this is my life. It's a freaking mess. I am a mess, so we're just gonna talk about what I read in February. Okay. Hi, handsome. Hi, handsome boy. So in February, I tried to take part in 3 readathons: Blackathon, the Blacklit Challenge, and the Black Author Readathon. I completed at least 1 book for each challenge, so I consider that to be a win. February was Black History Month, so for my reading...
Other Caucasians to the back. Immediately. Honestly, thank you. Looks better already.
I started February out with a romance. I did a historical romance by Beverly Jenkins, which was, I'm embarrassed to say, my first Beverly Jenkins book, and it was called Forbidden. I read this one for the Black Author Readathon, and I loved it. I listened to it on audio, which was really great. So the main character, we have Edie, who I think is in Nevada, maybe, or in Colorado, and is trying to make it to California. This is like late 1800s. And she gets basically conned and robbed and left for dead essentially on the side of the road. And this dude, Ryan, comes to her rescue. So he's a white dude, comes to her rescue and takes her to this town where he is very prominent and, you know, gets her back to health. And so she is being like nursed back to health, but still with the intention to leave. But, you know, then there's feelings, but, you know, with the time period, they're like, there shouldn't be feelings. And he is also engaged to marry this white lady, and love and adventures and chaos ensue. And what I loved about this was Edie is a cook. And so while she is trying to get back on her feet, trying to make some money so she can head west, she is staying at like one of the bigger boarding houses in town, and she's also cooking, and I just love that aspect, like hearing about her cooking and what they were cooking, what people were eating, and then the you know, the Western vibe of the story. And then there's like this like twist that comes in the middle, kind of this information that you find out, and I was like, okay. And I really loved their romance together. There wasn't a lot of steaminess, I will say that's the downside, but it was a really great story. And even, you know, that last act in romance stories, whew, this one stressed me out, but I love the resolution. There was also this like side aspect of like this familial part that the hero had these 2 young boys who were orphans that he took great care of, took great interest in, and it just warmed my heart. So that was really great. I gave it 4 stars. It was a great start to my February. And then I read another romance. This was a novella by Alyssa Cole, and Once Ghosted, Twice Shy. So it's 6:42 a.m. It's Tuesday, February 9th. I don't know the last time I checked in. So last night I stayed up till 1 a.m. editing my video for today, my tea video, and then I got up, so I fell asleep around 1:30. Then I got up at 5 a.m. to get in line early for the COVID vaccine, which paid off. I was the first in line. It was a little chilly and then it started to rain, but I was the first in line. But after paperwork or whatever, the second person to get jabbed, and then you have to wait 15 minutes to make sure you feel fine. I feel fine. They told me my arm is going to be sore, and I already feel it. So this was my first dose, so I'm excited to already have that. But I'm going home to go to sleep. I'm going to go to sleep, and so what vlog am I even doing this for? I don't even remember. So I have finished I finished Forbidden by Beverly Jenkins, which I think I talked about before, but I really enjoyed it. I really loved the characters and I loved the story, and the part of the end I was like getting worried, but I love how it ended. And then I read Twice Ghosted, Once Shy, Twice Shy, Once Ghosted by Alyssa Cole. I can't remember what it's called, but it's just a short novella. It was fine. I give it 3 stars. It was just a quick story. I was actually more interested in, like, there was like a side family drama issue that I was more interested in than the romance itself, but it was fun. I listened to the audiobook, which was a nice quick listen. And now I have started The Lesson by Caldwell Turnbull. That's the group book for Blackathon. And that one is very interesting so far. I love the narrator because I'm listening to the audio, and I'm very intrigued to see where this is going, but I'm only a little bit into that. So I finished 2 romances for Black Author Readathon. I'm starting my first book for Blackathon. And then, I don't know. So for Black Lit Challenge, I had chosen like 3 nonfiction, and I finished The New Jim Crow, and I'm just mentally exhausted. And so all the nonfiction books that I had picked were about like race, and I just can't read those right now. Like, I'm so tired. So I think one I will finish though, just because it's short, and that's Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates, and that will be for Black Lit Challenge. And then I'm also for Black Lit Challenge trying to read An Unkindness of Ghosts by Rivers Solomon. I'm just waiting for it to come in from the library. But I also got in Kindred by Octavia Butler from the library today, and that's for Blackathon, so I'll be reading that after I finish The Lesson, probably. I'm trying to do too many things, and I just figured I'd check in. But anyway, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna go to sleep. Okay, bye. For Blackathon, I then read The Lesson by Caldwell Turnbull. This was the group book for a science fiction fantasy team. I had never heard of this book, but it is a science fiction book set in the U.S. Virgin Islands, which I haven't read a book set there. I listened to this on audio as well, and I loved the narrators. I loved it. And so this story is really about, so in the U.S. Virgin Islands, essentially 5 years ago, these aliens came out of nowhere and basically landed there and have been there ever since. And so they basically are like, well, in exchange for us helping you pitiful humans, you will let us live here and live amongst you. And at first, it really wasn't clear like why or what the reason was or what the lesson was. I think you learn that as you read the book, but it was very interesting, a science fiction take on colonialism. And there's a main character who is a native, but he works for one of the aliens, basically the alien ambassador. So he has to deal with a lot of like judgment from his community, his grandmother, for, you know, working side by side with one of these people that came in. And they also have like this, they don't necessarily get along with the citizens. People are really afraid of them because, you know, certain people may do something and a normal authority, it might be a slap on the wrist, but them, people have been like murdered. So it's a really, I can't say much more than that without becoming spoilery, but essentially you're following the main character who works with the ambassador, and then you're learning about the history of these aliens via the ambassador's POV, and then how their stories come together and how they go from there, because there's like an incident with the alien people and regular people, and it's like riling up tensions. And it was really good, the first half especially, and then felt like it was building towards something bigger than what the ending was. So for me, the ending didn't seem like the story was like building, and then the ending kind of, what's that? It just didn't live, it didn't feel like it matched the story. I was like, that's it? It just seemed to just stop. And so I was disappointed in that, but it still was a really great read, definitely different, because again, I haven't read a book in that setting. I liked that, talking about colonialism, but using science fiction, using, you know, aliens. So I gave it a 3.5, I think. Still a really good book. I would recommend the audio because the narrators are amazing. I also listened to a lot of audio in February, and so I read for the Black Lit Challenge because I'd chosen a lot of nonfiction, and then I got overwhelmed with reading too much nonfiction because from January, I finally finished, in the beginning of February, The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. And I'll talk about that video in more depth in my next nonfiction video, but it was an excellent book. Well written, easy to digest, but hard. The information, it just made me feel so down and hopeless. And then I listened to Between the World and Me right after that, which was a terrible idea. But Between the World and Me is by Ta-Nehisi Coates, and it is is it considered a novella or just a short book? Essentially written to his son, talking to him as a young black man growing up in America. Oh my God. I was bawling by the end of it, but he talks about his life growing up as well, and then, looking at his son and seeing similarities and differences and how the political and social climate was then, and there's differences in their personality and parents, grandparents, things like that. And so it is so good. Like, you have to read it or listen to it because he narrates it. I don't know what else to say. He does end it though more hopeful, and that was nice, but by then I was already in tears. So I was like, is it gonna get better though? It definitely is a must read. It's just hard. What I was saying is, I'm a black woman. Obviously, he's writing this to his son, growing up a black man in America, but still so relatable, so much of it, because so much of it overlaps the experiences that black people in America have. And it was so powerful, but also it's just devastating to hear, because I'm not a parent. So I can't imagine being a parent and, living in America, raising your children in America, and having to have these conversations with them, like ways to try to prevent yourself from going to jail or being murdered by the police, just different ways you have to carry yourself and different things you have to do to try to prevent, yourself being killed over a misunderstanding. So please read it. Oh my God, Nigel is eating my floss. Hey, come here. Give me the floss. Nigel, give it to me. Come here. Are you going to show everybody? Come here. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Are you ashamed of yourself? You should be. Don't give me no sugars. Come here. Place. So I was feeling slumpy after reading those two nonfictions back to back. So I read a short story by Karen Slaughter called Snatched. It is in the Will Trent series, and it was really good. It was really fast. I don't know if you have read any of those, but Karen Slaughter has two older series, Grant County and Will Trent, which Grant County is finished, but she's still writing books in the Will Trent series. It's a crime fiction story, so it's like a police procedural. And this was just a short story about Will is at the airport and in Atlanta, so a huge airport, and he sees something suspicious, like this little girl with this dude, and they don't look like their father-daughter, but he has no way to prove it, but he goes with his instincts and calls it in, but they go missing in like no time, but by the time authorities get there. So the story is trying to figure out, like, was it actually a kidnapping, who the little girl is, who the dude is, and then like where the little girl went. But so since it was a short story, it was really good, really fast paced, and came to a great resolution. And so I gave that one 4 stars, I think. Then back to, for Blackathon, I think I read Benty, which was, I can't remember the prompt, but it is by Nnedi Okorafor, she's super popular, and everyone has always raved about Benty. It's a trilogy of novellas, and I only read the first one, and I didn't love it. Like, I feel everyone loves Nnedi Okorafor, everyone loves Benty, and I thought it was fine. It's so short though. I can't remember. I have a paperback copy somewhere. It was less than 80 pages, I think. So Benty is of college age, or someone going to college, but her people, they don't leave. Bless you. But she is going against the odds and going away into the galaxy, into like this university essentially, because she's really smart, and their magic works with like math. I don't really understand it, but you don't really need to. So basically the story takes place almost entirely on this spaceship on the way to the university, and they're attacked, and then it goes from there. But just it just wasn't enough book for me to feel connected to Benty, to feel connected to the story. Like, I thought it was fine, but I felt like maybe if it had been 150 pages maybe, that there would have been more breathing room. And I know there's 2 more, but I don't know if I want to read the other 2. I don't feel that inclined to read the other 2 after this one. So I don't know. I won't say I'm like never gonna read it. And I gave it like 3 stars because I was interested. It just wasn't enough for me. And then my last book for any of the readathons was Pulling Doubles by Christina C. Jones. So this was for the Black Author Readathon. I don't know what prompt, maybe contemporary romance or something. I was planning on reading something else, and then I don't know what happened. Anyway, I read Pulling Doubles, which is the second in the Wright Brothers series. I didn't realize it was a series, so I'm gonna go back and read the first one. So this story is about a doctor, and his name is Joseph, and he is notoriously single, and all the ladies at the hospital love him. He's a gynecologist. And then there's a nurse practitioner, and her name is Devin. So she is like newly licensed as a nurse practitioner. So she has to complete like certain hours under supervision, because essentially a nurse practitioner can do a lot of the things doctors do, but they can't like write prescriptions, and they have limitations, but they have more authority, more knowledge than just a registered nurse. So she is working under Joseph, and he is just an asshole to her. He always questions her judgment. He belittles her. He like doesn't trust her to do things that she's supposed to be able to do. And they're trying to bring her on as a nurse practitioner to help their practice, to have another person to take on some of the workload. And she's just really frustrated. She wants a husband, settle down with kids, and she has this ex who was a lot. But yeah, so she's working under him. He's an ass. And it's funny because you get to see his perspective and her perspective. So when they go home or outside of work and they talk to like their family and friends, or they tell their family and friends about the other one, and they're like, okay, well, it's obvious you have feelings for him or her. And they're like, no, they don't like me. I don't like them. And then it goes from there. Obviously, romance ensues, sexy times ensue, and I loved it so much. I loved their romance, their banter. Well, really their arguments at first, and then their banter, their romance, his family and her friend, and how they like overlap, and I loved it. There was steamy sex in a supply closet, and there was a point where like her ex comes in the picture, but he like jumps. The whole time reading it, I was just like, ooh. So I definitely want to go back and read the first and the third. I think there's only 3 in the Wright Brothers series, but that one was good. So those were all the books that I read for those readathons. I also read The Echo Wife, which I had as an advanced reader copy from NetGalley. And this is by Sarah Gailey. It is a science fiction thriller. So our main character is Evelyn, and she's super smart. She's like a geneticist, like a really smart scientist, and she's worked to basically figure out human cloning. And she is recently divorced as well. But there's also a clone of her, and now her ex-husband is married to the clone of her. How weird is that? But he ends up being killed, and drama ensues. So without spoiling things, what I liked about this, the premise itself, is really interesting. Having a clone of yourself, and that's who your man leaves you for. But you get to find out more about how that happened, why that happened. I love that we had a main character that was, independent and super smart in the sciences. She knew what she wanted. Like, I don't want kids, and I like to see that in a story, because not all, everyone doesn't want children. And so I really liked that part. And even some of the sciencey parts, talking about cloning, not like I understood it all, because chemistry, not my thing. But I just liked those parts when she's in the lab and talking about all the different things they have to do, and like the stages of a clone growing, and all the things they have to check to make sure it's viable. Thought that was all super interesting. I can't pinpoint why I didn't love it, like over the top. Like, I gave it a 3.5. I thought it was really good. I can't pinpoint why I didn't love it. Some of it just didn't feel like it fit the story or the characters, like some of the actions. I was like, really? This is what you're gonna do, even though you just did this? But it was very interesting. The ending was I like the ending. I still think it's really great book. I got the ARC, so I'm really glad. I would have borrowed it from my library. It's not something I would read again, but it was enjoyable. I heard about this next book on Twitter. I don't remember why or who. Anyway, it's called From the Desk of Zoe Washington by Janae Marks. This is a middle grade book, and our main character, Zoe, she wants to be a baker, like a pastry chef, and I'm like, I love this. So she lives with her mom and dad, and her biological father is in prison, we learn. She wants to be like a pastry chef, and in the story, there's like a fictionalized version of like the kids version of British Bake Off or whatever. And so she wants to apply to the show. Her parents are kind of skeptical, but they're like, okay, well, if you apprentice with like I think it was a family friend who has a bakery, with her for the summer, and you do a really good job, she gives you a great review, then we'll let you apply. So it's following her during the summer, and her working at the bakery, but also she gets home like early one day and gets the mail before her birthday, and she discovers a letter from a penitentiary, and it's actually a letter from her father to her, and she reads it and finds out that there had been previous letters, but her mom had never told her about them. She just assumed that he never tried to contact her, and so she's dealing with that information and try to keep it secret, working at the bakery, and then also dealing with her like conflicting feelings and the ever-changing relationship with her best friend next door, who's a boy. So it was so good. It had all the elements of why I love middle grade. Like, it was so like cozy and cute, but also still addressing serious topics like dealing with a family member in prison and what that means. Also, I just loved the baking aspect and her being able to like become an apprentice, and her parents like realizing how serious she was and taking her seriously and helping her work towards her dream. I also loved her friendship with her neighbor next door and exploring that and having like a platonic relationship between a boy and a girl. It was chef's kiss, 5 stars. I loved it. You should read it. Then I read Legendborn. I did a buddy read with Elliot Brooks and Jessie May's channels. I'll link down below. We did a live show talking about the book, non-spoilery and spoilery. And overall, I didn't love it. I'm debating whether I want to do a separate review because I have a lot of thoughts on the book. And I've still been talking to people about it. So I'm back and forth with whether I want to do like a full review video for Legendborn on its own. But it's by Tracy Deonn. It is a young adult fantasy novel that has taken the bookish community by storm, which makes me so happy. I am so happy this book exists and that so many people love it and got a lot from it. It just didn't work that well for me for many reasons, which some of it would get into spoilers, but it's not like I didn't love, I just didn't connect with the main character, and some of the choices, like how it was written, didn't work for me. Like, she just accepts magic really quickly, because essentially the story is her mother was killed in an accident, and then she goes to this summer program at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. She's still in high school, but it's like a summer program for advanced students. And she discovers that there's magic and starts to wonder if maybe that was kind of tied to what happened to her mom. So she goes to this program with her sister. Obviously the main character, Bree, is Black, and then she discovers like there's secret societies, and the main one that she ends up stumbling into is all white, and it's based on the Arthurian legend, and they're called Legendborns, and there's all different sorts of names and descriptions and ranks and things, and there's a secondary magic system that comes in later in the book, which was my favorite. But what I didn't love was that the magic system had so much going on. I feel like it's a very well written book, but I was listening to the audio, but also following along in the physical book. And the pages and mages and just all the different terms, I still was like so confused. And maybe that's because I've never looked really that far into the Arthurian legend. I don't know. But also I just found it weird for this story with our black main character to be around majority white people like the entirety of the book. And I don't know. I just have feelings that I would get further into in a discussion video, but she accepts magic really quickly. Some of it was really confusing. The secondary magic system I preferred more, and there were so many like side characters that I feel like none of them were really fleshed out, and I don't remember any of their names. There's a love triangle, which it's YA, what are you gonna do? But it's very like good boy versus bad boy, which I don't love either. And so there's just things that didn't work for me, but I did love the social commentary that Tracy Deonn put into the story, and using the setting of UNC Chapel Hill to talk about like slavery and institutional racism and all of those things, showing microaggressions against the main character. Talking, her father is a part of the story also, which I love, because usually in young adult books there's no parents. So she did lose her mother, but she still has her father who she's in contact with, so I love that part as well. She also starts going to therapy, so I love having that conversation, especially you know, in the black community, going to therapy can sometimes be considered taboo, so I'm glad that that was in there. There was a lot that I did like, I just didn't love it, and I'm intrigued for the second one. I think I'll read it. I don't know if I would buy it right off the bat. I probably would just borrow it from the library, but I'm intrigued to read the second one. And nevertheless, I'm just happy this book is out there, that there are more black authors getting their hype and their due. It just wasn't for me. Okay, and lastly, the wildest book I read all month was The Library at Mount Char by Scott Hawkins. This was the video I tried to do a vlog for and failed. I look like shit, so I put the camera, my phone a little further away so you can't see me as well, but I'm in the parking lot outside the gym. My ankles are ashy, so I gotta put some lotion on before I go inside. But I started The Library at Mount Char last night. I only got like 48 pages in, and it is weird. There's like 12 kids. We're only following the perspective of one so far, but I really don't know what's going on. They're all looking for father. There's some violence already happening. There's some really strange shit popping off. And I'm like, I don't know what the hell is going on, but I'm intrigued. So that's good. Hi, I'm looking exceptionally ratty. It is the second day of my period. I do not feel great. I've had a trying morning. I took Nigel to the vet. He's fine. All is well, but we've just had a trying morning, so he is sleeping. Can you see his little ears? He's sleeping, and I should read. I don't even know what vlog I'm filming this for. Oh, The Library at Mount Char. So I got to page 148 last night, which was the end of part 1, which I thought was a good starting point. I really don't know what the fuck is going on. Like, I literally cannot explain what this book is about, what genre this is. Like, I can't give you a synopsis. I do not know. I don't even know if I'm enjoying it. I don't think I'm hating it, but I'm so confused and so weird. I'm trying to give you as little of looking at me as possible. Anyway. Oh, look. There's a baby. I have like 85 pages left in The Library at Mount Char. Something's finally kind of came together, but it is freaking wild. I thought Vita Nostra was wild. This book is Looney Tunes. Like, this is such a terrible angle, but it is so freaking bonkers. I don't even know how you freaking describe it. There's so much just happened. So much. But, yeah. I don't know. I think this book is so wild. And then I'm also listening to the audiobook of the new Jim Crow, which is just really pissing me off because of, injustice and such. And I'm like, my brain hurts. So I definitely think I'm going to go back to the Black Authors Readathon prompts, and I'm going to read some romance so we can have some nice, happy, light reading. I don't know, man. Ow! This is such a chaotic check-in, but I'm going to finish the library at Mount Char, and maybe I'll have some kind of coherent thought for you. Maybe not. Okay, I have only heard of this book from like 2 people. One was Mara at Books Like Whoa, and the second was, I can't remember. But they mentioned there being the kind of gods walking amongst us theme in the book. I didn't really know much beyond that, so I borrowed it from the library. And I had a fucking adventure. So I don't even know how to explain this book. So we have a main character, Carolyn, and she's one of like 12 kids, and they all have the same father, but they're not biologically related. They were technically like adopted by this guy. Think like the Umbrella Academy, how he went around and got all these children. So he has these 12 kids, but you start out the story and they're trying to find him because father has gone missing somehow. But we're mainly following Carolyn, and all of the kids, they're like grown-ups. They're like in their 20s now. And so you hear stories about them growing up and the interesting life that they've lived. But they're all very different. There's like one who can talk to the dead. And then there's one who has like ridiculous strength. One who can kind of see the future. Like they all kind of have their own like talents or powers. And I can't even remember what Carolyn's is. He walks around in like the most ridiculous outfits because, they're in the human world right now and they're trying to figure out things like what happened to father. There's lions. There's hordes of angry dogs. There's like bombs, murder, assault, bringing people back from the dead, a bank robbery. If you can think it's in this book, and I literally can't tell you why it makes sense. It doesn't feel like it makes sense until like the last 50 pages. I feel like maybe 75 pages. It all comes together and you're like, oh. But up until then, you're like, what the fuck is going on? What is happening? But it's not like, it's so unique. It's so fucking far left that you just keep reading because you're like, I have to know what the fuck is going on in this goddamn book. And then you get to the end and you're like, oh. Not like it makes any of the things beforehand not seem weird. They're still weird and wild and out of pocket and freaking nutty. But you understand how it all makes sense as a cohesive story. And that probably didn't make any fucking sense, but that's all I can tell you. So if you are interested in a story about that and you don't have any triggers against, there's a lot of on-page violence, torture, murder. So if you're fine with that and you want something totally different than any other fantasy story you've read, standalone, super unique, fast, it's easy to read because you're just like, what is happening? You just have to keep turning the pages. I would recommend the library at Mount Char. If you read it, please let me know because what? It was, I don't even know. I don't know. But this chaotic video has come to a close. Thank you. Those were the books I read in February. I had a really great reading month overall. My March reading has been not great. I've been feeling really slumpy and I've been feeling too busy to have time to read, which is really unfortunate. But I'm also trying to read too many things at once. Like right now I'm reading a physical book and an ebook and like 4 audiobooks. And also, I finished Royal Assassin, which took me a long time to get through, so I feel like that slowed down my reading. Anyway, whether or not you read one book or 20 books, you know, we're all still readers, but I just have so many things I want to get to that it's frustrating when certain books take me longer than I anticipated, and then I feel like I'm behind. But these are all made up deadlines, you know what I'm saying? So that was my video. I'm sorry if you can hear Nigel chewing on his toy over here. I'm just glad he's doing that instead of licking his paws. But that's going to be the end of this video. I'll link all of the books in the description below, and I'll have links to things going on in the world, ways you can help. And there's links to my social media, ways to support my channel if you are interested in that. But that is going to be all for me today. I have no song for Nigel. I'm working on a new piece, but you can look at him. Uh-oh. Are you going to get it? Are you going to get your toy? Nigel, tell them bye. Say bye-bye. Okay. Happy reading. We'll see you in our next one. Bye.